The brand new patterns from Villa Rosa have arrived for November. There are 7 different patterns, and if you love 2.5 inch strips, and if you have 2.5 inch strips that you're not exactly sure what to do with, I have a few different patterns for you. And along with, if you love table toppers and fat quarter quilted projects, then this month is for you. Hi, my name is Emily, and if you are a quilter, you belong here, because together we are going to quilt your legacy for not only yourself, but also for your favorite people to enjoy. Together we are going to create lasting sewn projects for you to enjoy along with your favorite people. Join me and subscribe to the YouTube channel. That way you never miss out on another episode. So I've been doing these for a few months now, and typically I hold the table topper patterns at the end. This month I'm going to mix it up a little bit, and I'm going to review the first 2 table toppers first, and then the remaining quilts. Also, huge news on the Norton House website. You can now download the patterns digitally, so you don't have to wait for me to ship them to you. They are each $2 for the pattern, and again, you can get the pattern instantly, and all of the information is right in the show notes. So again, I'm going to walk you through exactly what the pattern is, what the size of the pattern, what you're going to need for fabric, along with how to cut out the particular pattern, and then of course any other additional information that you. I love Villa Rosa Patterns because they are intuitive, great economical price at $2, not to mention how convenient to just download the patterns, so that way we can get you back to sewing. Let's begin. So the first pattern is Pumpkin Hollow Table Topper, which is measuring at 16.5 inches by 50 inches. And in fact, a few days ago, I did a live sewing video on how to make this table topper. And in fact, a few days ago, I did a live video on the Norton House Quilting Facebook page on how to make this particular table topper. And there are still a few spots available for you to join the Zoom call, and let's quilt this together. About this pattern though, so first you're going to need to choose an arrangement of orange hues for the different pumpkins. Also, you're going to need 1 scrap of green fabric for the stem, like a cream color background to really highlight the different orange pumpkin hues. To make, you are going to need 2 different fat quarters for the large pumpkin, 3 fat 1/8 of a yard for the small pumpkins, along with a scrap piece of green fabric. The pattern is suggesting 4 inches by 12 inches for the scrap green fabric, along with 5/8 of a yard cut for the background color, and then 1/3 for the binding. And again, I have quilt kits available for this. Let's sew this particular pattern together. To cut out this quilt, you're going to need to take your 2 fat quarters for the large pumpkins, turn them into rectangles, and then the remaining bits on the fat quarters, turning them into 2.5 inch strips. Then from the orange hues that you have for the fat 8s, you're going to need to cut those into 2.5 inch strips. And then you're going to take your green stem fabric, turning those into, of course, green pumpkin stems. And then finally, you're going to cut the background fabric into squares, because you're going to be making the flip stitch, which is what's going to create the pumpkin to turn into a pumpkin shape. So we're going to be doing the flip stitch for that, and then of course cutting out any other background fabrics as well. Quilting your legacy notes. This is going to be quick and easy, not to mention how fun to make this for a loved one on Thanksgiving. Again, we could make this together, and how amazing to give it to one of your favorite people on Thanksgiving Day, or have it on your Thanksgiving table, knowing that one day you are going to pass it on to one of your favorite people. The second pattern, another table topper, which is called Goody Gumdrops. Goody Gumdrops, and it measures at 14 inches by 36 inches. All you need is 5-inch squares. So if you have a charm pack laying around, you're not quite sure what to do with, this is your table topper. To make this particular table topper, again, all you need is 40 different 5-inch squares and 1/4 of a yard for the binding. To cut out this particular pattern, you are going to take your 5-inch square, you're going to randomly select 13 of them, and then putting them into 3 different piles. Then from that 3 different different piles, you are going to create the gumdrop block, quilting your legacy note. This again is a brilliant table topper. It's going to measure at 14 inches by 35 inches. If this is too small for you, not a big deal. You can go ahead and add in more gumdrop blocks, because again, you're going to need 45-inch squares, but if you needed to make this a little bit larger, add to it. The third pattern is Shoots and Ladders. This is a quilt pattern and it measures at 50 inches by 70 inches. This is a fun and playful quilt only using 2.5-inch strips. There is an optional border on the pattern, but again, all you need is 2.5-inch strips. To make this quilt, you are going to need a 40 pack of 2.5-inch strips, along with a yard and 3/8 of a yard cut for the background fabric. And if you wanted to add an additional border, you would need 2.5 yards to frame out the quilt. And then you're going to need 5/8 of a yard cut for the binding. So how to cut out this quilt? Again, you are going to need an entire jelly roll pack of 2.5-inch strips. You're going to be cutting out half of the strip a few different ways, and then the other half of the pile, you're going to be cutting those into strips. Then the background is going to be cut into 3 different cuts. Plus, again, there's an optional border to it. Quilting your legacy notes. You cannot go wrong with choosing fabric for this quilt. You could use bally fabrics, autumn or seasonal fabrics, or even a jelly roll pack that you've had laying around that you're not quite sure what to make with. This could be your quilt. The fourth pattern is Planters. It is a quilt pattern. It is measuring at 60 inches by 70 inches. Quilting your legacy starts now. Again, just like the previous pattern that I showed you, all you need is 2.5-inch strips to make this quilt. Only going to need 30 of the 2.5-inch strips. And then for the background fabric, you're going to need 2 yards, all of them cut into 3.5-inch strips. To make this quilt, you are going to need 12 different fat quarters and then 1/2 of a yard for the bind. To cut out this quilt, you are going to take your fat quarters and turn them into 2.5-inch strips and cut them 2 different ways. And then the background fabric, you'll be cutting 20 of those strips into 3.5 inches. Quilting your legacy notes. This quilt would be remarkable for a quilt of valor quilt with the red, white, and blue fabric. Or I love the idea of using neutral color fabrics to make with this pattern, as you cannot go wrong. The fifth pattern is again a quilt pattern. It is 60 inches by 80 inches. Quilting your legacy starts now. You get to choose any 12 fat quarter. This quilt is a brilliant pattern to highlight your favorite fat quarters or highlight the favorite season that you have, or even the favorite season of one of your loved ones. To make this quilt, you are going to need 12 different fat quarters, 2 yards for the background fabric, along with 3/4 of a yard for the bind. To cut out this quilt, you are first going to take 8 fat quarters and cut them into strips, then turning one of those strips into 2 different rectangles. Then you're going to take your other 4 fat quarters, cut them into 2 different strips to make them into little mini rectangles. And then finally, you're going to cut your background fabric into 1.5 inches for the sashing, and then the remaining into 2.5 inches for the background fabric. Quilting your legacy notes. Again, all you need is 12 different fat quarters plus a neutral background color. And again, this is a brilliant quilt to highlight your favorite fabrics. The sixth quilt is Wraps. This is a quilt pattern measuring at 60 inches by 72 inches. This is going to highlight all of your favorite colors. And again, you cannot go wrong with this particular pattern. To make this quilt, you are going to need 9 fat quarters along with 3/4 of a yard cut or 5 6-inch strips, which is going to be your corner squares. You're going to be cutting those into 5-inch squares, and you're going to need 1.3 yards for the border fabric and 5/8 for your bind. This is very, very important. Do not choose directional fabrics, because the way that you need to cut out your fat quarters, it will not work. All of your fabrics into strips and then into rectangles triangles. You're going to be cutting your corner squares into 5-inch squares. You will need 36 of those. And with those corner squares, you will be making the flip stitch, quilting your legacy note. Again, this would be an amazing quilt to make for someone using earth tones or even red, white, and blue, similar to what the pattern looks like. And then last but certainly not least is Estrella, which is a wall hanging or baby quilt measuring at 52 inches by 52 inches. This quilt is gorgeous. I love the bright color fabrics that they chose for the pattern, along with that black background. It really makes the fabrics just pop right out. This would be gorgeous with bally fabric. You will need to make half square triangles, but don't panic, because in the show notes, you will notice that there is a link to how to make 8 at a time half square triangles to save you time and your sanity. I made it a few months ago. It is awesome. It is a great resource just to kind of refresh yourself on not only how to make half square triangles, but also to speed up the time in making 8 at a time. Quilting your legacy starts now. Look at the gorgeous star burst block. If the 52 by 52, the 4 blocks is too small, not a big deal. You can absolutely add to it by making more of the star burst block. To make this quilt in this exact size, you are going to need 1 yard and 7/8 for the background fabric, 2 middle color fabrics, which will each be 1/8 of a yard cut, which is the inner star points. You're going to need 4 of the outside color fabrics, 3/8 of a yard cut. That is going to be your outer rings and the center, along with 1/2 of a yard for the binding. And again, you are going to need to make half square triangles, but to save you time and sanity, you can absolutely make the half square triangles 8 at a time, or choose your favorite half square triangle method to make this quilt. My neighbor is so good to me. He's out there mowing. Hopefully you guys can hear that. Thank you so much for watching the 7 different patterns of the brand new Villa Rosa Patterns. Make sure you click that subscribe button. That way you never miss out on another episode, not to mention next month's pattern reviews. I am Emily from Norton House Quilting, founder of Quilting Your Legacy. And if you are a quilter, you belong here. We are going to create a lasting legacy for you to enjoy along with your favorite people. Make sure you join our Facebook group for our monthly challenge. Everything is right in the show notes. Here's to quilting your legacy.